Let's go. Welcome. Happy Monday, everybody. Good to be with you. Scaling beyond seven figures in trucking. How would you like to do that, man? How would you like to do that? Awesome and fantastic. Let's go. So, guys, I'm just going to be with you real quickly before we get started. Hope you're having a great new year. Hope you're having a fantastic new year. I am, especially when I get to have conversations with people like you. Welcome to this call, guys. If you're on this call tonight, you are the elite, man. You're serious about your business. You're serious about making sure you're moving your trucking company to those next levels. You will accomplish more so than the next person because of your commitment and your dedication is what I want to say. I just want to acknowledge you for that. So welcome tonight, man. It's really good to be with you. And really quickly, I'm going to give a disclaimer here before we get started. Just like how we always do, man. Now, the following is for educational purposes only. It is not to be considered financial, accounting, or legal advice. Please consult your tax, accounting, and/or legal professional for specific advice. Let's go. And, I'm doing a little bit of a different platform here today, guys. Let me know what you think. Provide your comments and everything, your feedback, and the chats and YouTube. And definitely here if you're on with me live on Zoom. This conversation today is important for us to really to get for what it is that you do. And, one of the main things that I would have you get present to inside of our conversation is the fact that you don't have to have life be a mystery. You don't have to be a reaction to the market. You don't have to be a reaction to your brokers, your customers, your drivers, your equipment. You don't have to be a reaction to the things that you would typically be a reaction to. And what I mean is that, man, like things will happen inside of the business. Things will happen to you when you're, running your company. Like people won't do what they say. Equipment won't perform. It'll fail, right? It'll break down. Your brokers, your customers won't pay you in some cases. Okay. So there are a lot of things, and we can keep going down the line with all that stuff, guys. We can inside of the industry. And what I want you to get is that none of that stuff really gets to say so in how your life gets to go when it comes to your trucking company. You get to say so, and that's what this conversation is going to be about today. And I'm happy to be with you in this conversation today, guys, because I want you to be left with the power that you have to control your own destiny in the trucking industry, in your company, in your business with these specific principles. Last week and the week before, we're talking about systems and how to put them into place and how you can create these to make sure that you have a track to go beyond what you thought possible in some cases. So what that means is that if you have not scaled your company beyond seven figures and you want to, and you want to do it in a way where you're not experiencing all the headaches that you are experiencing now to a larger degree, then you can do that. You can scale that up to that degree and beyond while maintaining your sanity, while keeping your peace of mind. You can do it by applying the principles that we talk about in these calls. So you're in the right place, doing the right thing at the right time. And I'm excited to be that person that's in your life right now, delivering on this. Okay. So without further ado, let's get into it. Scaling your trucking company, seven figures and beyond. Today, we're going to be talking about the role of a CFO, a Chief Financial Officer, in financial and tax planning for growth. So if you are that person in your company, you're making like a lot of the financial decisions. Today, we're going to talk about that role that you get to play to make top-notch decisions in your trucking company, because at the end of the day, you and I only have choices that will lead to that future that you get to create for your business. And if we have those choices available to us, well, why not be the person to make really great choices? Why not be that person to make really great choices? One of the things I have for this year for myself is wisdom and wealth. Wisdom and wealth, wisdom because, honoring the choices that I get to make and being confident in those choices because the choices I make are based in principles like this that we're going to talk about today. They're based in principles. Now, if I continue to make those choices that align with those principles, then I'm going to continue to win. And the people around me are going to continue to win as well when I make those choices consistently inside of wisdom. Wisdom is choosing correctly for me this year, choosing in the way that serves me and serves others consistently and reliably inside of that. So I'm excited about 2025 that it gets to be that for me. And I'm also excited that it gets to be that for you inside of this conversation as well. So the company, guys, by the way, is By the Books Consulting. My name is just in case you did not know, is Cheston Bulgin, CFO tax strategist, your accounting superhero, specialized in helping you in the trucking industry achieve peace, ease, and clarity so that you can have freedom, wealth, and legacy in what you do. You can reach us at 888-4BTB now. That's 888-428-2669. You can also reach us on the web at youraccountingsuperhero.com. There's an informational down here about the Truck Profit Academy as well. That gives content like this to you. We create masterminds and content so that you can have access to things like this to level up in your trucking company and your business if you so choose. Okay. You can join the Truck Profit Academy by going to truckprofitacademy.com. And you can see here how to get started with us on a subscription basis. So you can actually continue to level up like limitlessly in life inside of this area. All right, awesome. Now, let's go. So I want to talk to you about like the key aspect here. We've been talking about how to scale and you create systems in your trucking company. And one of those systems is financial. We want to talk about finance and what that looks like. And in another session, we're going to talk about the accounting aspect of the finances. But this particular call, I want to focus on the principles that govern how you make decisions when it comes to finances in your company, because finances are going to be the driving factor in whether or not you win. So what does that mean? It means when you make more money, you keep more money, you're winning. Okay. When you continue to grow in finances, you win. But how do you do that in any economy in the trucking industry consistently time after time after time after time again? We have people that we've seen and worked with in the industry that have up-leveled over the course of years that they've been working with in our environment. And, I've gotten to see some of the things that people do consistently to help go to those next levels financially in their company, which means they have more money in the bank. They're reinvesting into the business. They're strategically positioning themselves to pay less money in taxes. And they're creating legacy, like generational wealth and everything else with this foundation of trucking at its core, okay? But spinning off into everything else. But how do you do that is the question. And well, we want to introduce you to the financial concepts here and move it from concept to application, okay? Because this call, we go through information, but we really want to just go from the informational concept to how is it that you're going to apply this in your life today? How are you going to take this on today and forever into your future so that you continue to go to those next levels? Okay, so the importance of financial planning in trucking. Strategic financial planning ensures efficient resource allocation and helps businesses adapt to market fluctuations. With effective planning, trucking companies can manage cash flow, control expenses, and wisely invest in technology and equipment. Okay. So what does that mean, Justin? What does that really mean? Okay, let's talk about it a little bit. What does that really mean for you? Okay, you get to invest and you get to plan and invest in your company in a way where you're going to continue to keep your finances rising. You're going to continue to have your trucking company grow, and you're going to continue to reduce risk and increase leverage, which means that you're going to be able to do more with less, all right, through effective financial planning. So, like more often than not, I'll see people, like owners of businesses in the trucking space, be very reactive, which means that really focus on the day-to-day, putting out fires, managing their drivers, managing, load planning and everything else, and just going through that whole day-to-day, kind of like working as an employee of your own business type thing. Like you're managing your company and you're doing everything that you possibly can do in order to have the company work at whatever levels you may be. I've seen people that have had companies that produce, $500,000 a year in revenue in trucking, and companies that have produced $30 million in revenue in trucking. And it seems that there's a theme that people really don't want to let go of certain things inside of the business that really don't serve. At least if you're continuing to do that, the thing that we want to do is step outside of that role for a moment, to step in the role of business ownership to create these high-level actions, which comes in the terminology that we're using here today is planning. How are you going to plan? Like, what are you going to use? What are you going to deploy? How are you going to improve cash flow inside of your business? Now, if you look at what we just talked about here in terms of, strategic financial planning, ensuring the efficient resource allocation and adapting to market fluctuations, basically, you're given a certain set of resources that you can see before you. Like in the beginning, you say, "Wait, man, I'm going to go into trucking, and I'm going to get this piece of equipment, whether it's an 18-wheeler, like combination vehicle, CMV, heavy duty, and heavyweight class." And you say, "Look, I'm going to create this trucking company. We're going to do over-the-road trucking, and we're going to do drive-in work. We're going to do all this, and we're going to make money doing it." And some of you may be in the position where you said you wanted to do this because you enjoy driving. So you might be an owner-operator. You enjoy seeing the country. You enjoy your freedom. But you got in the business because you wanted to do well at something that you figured that you would love to do, something that's going to present that future that you really dream of. You're living your dream. You're actually putting and investing in your dream. Now, if you're doing that, you have in like the basic format of this resources that you're using to deliver that. Are you present to how you're using those resources that you're present to, and maybe the resources that you don't yet have available to you at this moment in time, like the future resources available? Okay. So financial planning ensures that we're going to utilize all these resources in a way that's going to serve you to ensure that your dream is realized. So, there's a talk that we do in a workshop that we do that's really based on how to set goals and set targets, but really create intentionality in your company, your trucking company. And when we do this, create the intentionality in your trucking company, I want you to understand how crucial that component of intentionality is. Because if we don't have that, then none of the stuff that I'm talking about right now will be available to you to deploy. What does that mean? It means that, well, if you don't have like the future in mind, if you don't have that clear intentionality in mind, well, you're not going to be able to plan resources around obtaining that and realizing that intention. So in the financial aspect of it, and if I see that I want to take my business from, 5 million to 10 million, that's the intention really, right? That's what we want to do. We want to take it from 5 million to 10 million in trucking. Now, if you have that intention in mind, well, now how we're going to allocate and spend and use resources to deliver that. A lot of the times it's going to be, well, we have this equipment, which is also a financial resource. Equipment has value to it. Okay. Whatever the cost was to invest in the equipment, and whatever that equipment is actually producing per year, there's a value that's linked to that. How are we going to use that equipment resourcefully to deliver that intention? Okay. Now, I've seen it where some people have had, produce $5 million worth of revenue for the trucking company, and they have capacity to do 8 million. So they're like 60% of capacity, which you're leaving 40% on the table. So, their units are not delivering 2 to 3 loads a week, and they're not producing, $1,200 a day, right? All across the board. So if that's the case, well, there's an opportunity there to deploy and utilize those resources effectively. And it could be a matter of, okay, well, this is what we've been doing now to recruit and retain drivers. These are the type of drivers we've been bringing on. Now, how can we shift and pivot to make sure we ensure that the people we bring on, they're elevated and they come up to the standard of what we expect in the culture, and the people that we bring on are actually fitting the mold to a large degree. They're checking all these boxes before we bring them on, because it looks like maybe the drivers that we bring on, they're not producing at that level, and there's a reason for it. It could be that they're misusing their time, their hours of service. They're taking too many stops, too many breaks. They are not doing their reset effectively. Instead of using their time in the sleeper, they're using their time as off duty or something like that, and now they're not really maximizing their 70-hour week. Right. So those are the things we go to look at to see how are we actually using and deploying our resources to make sure we're at full capacity. Now, financial planning, this is an example of it. Understanding, well, how these resources are deployed in your business, and then understanding what gaps there are inside of the deployment of the resources so that we can start to bridge those gaps. Okay. So that's what, like, if you're a CFO in your company, if you have not worked with a CFO and you really looking to work with somebody, these are the things that you want to take a look at. Okay. You want to look at um, this and a whole lot of other things, really. But, one of the main things is how we're actually deploying the resources and strategic planning when it comes to finances. Okay. So when we look at this in terms of efficient resource allocation, this is what we're talking about. When we're talking about equipment, we're talking about money, we're talking about drivers, we're talking about all these things that we can do to improve the efficiency of what we're doing here. Okay. Now, effective planning means that we're taking a look at all those resources at our fingertips. We're taking a look at all the resources that we can possibly have in the future, and we're looking at managing those things, those resources rather, so that we are moving in the direction of improving the position of the company financially. That makes sense. Okay. Now invest wisely in technology and equipment. Invest wisely in technology and equipment. That's what we're doing here when we're talking about and human capital, not just technology and equipment, but in people as well. Okay. So, and this is the importance of financial planning in trucking. Now, the next thing I want to bring to the conversation is the role that you would have as a CFO in your company. And so, if you're looking to have somebody play this role, for example, we do outsource CFO work for companies that we serve. Okay. And the role that you want to have this person play is steering financial strategy, overseeing budgets, and managing financial risk. All right, there are three main bullets here that you want to have, like your CFO be responsible for. Okay. Now, analyzing financial risks include like financial reports and looking at market conditions. So, for example, like fuel, like what fuel has been doing. You want to understand like the fuel rates and like the market conditions of fuel. You want to understand, this time of year and like coming out of the holidays, how there's a lull in terms of, there's like a lot of capacity, a lot of supply when it comes to trucks available in the market versus the demand for those trucks in the market. So there's going to be a lull when it comes to being able to continue to get the volume of loads that you want to get. But how are you going to manage that during these times? Like, what actions are you going to take during these times to ensure that you're still going to sustain and not just sustain, but improve even in these points where it's typically and historically a lull? Okay. But, making those decisions in those moments that would have you win beyond that are crucial, right? And your CFO wants to be able to help you and guide you in those positions, in those circumstances. So if that's you, you want to start looking in this area to make sure that you have a plan of action around market conditions and understand market risk and financial risks that you are exposed to. Reduce those risks, like in terms of leverage, like financing and everything else that goes along with it, and cash positions, so that you can weather whatever storms and improve the overall performance of the business. Okay. So the goals that we want to really accomplish in financial strategy, which is one of the main components of, your, like the CFO theme that we're talking about today, is maximizing profitability, improving cash flow, and ensuring sustainable growth. Okay. That's why you're here in this conversation, so that you can have ways to do all of these things, maximize your profitability, improve cash flows, and ensure sustainable growth. But what are those things? What are those things that you can do to do that for your company? How do you do that? How you manage the finances as a CFO for your company? Okay, let's bear with me, guys. Yeah, logistically, I'm bringing people into the room. Okay, let's go. So, super important, guys. Like, for example, like people bring money in inside of their business, and they don't have a plan of action for the money that comes in, like revenue wise. Like 10%, if you're not taking 10% and putting it into a reserve, at least that, then you might have some issues when it comes to financial growth and profitability and improved cash flow. If you don't have a structure there, even if it's not 10%, even if you don't have any structure there at all, you're really not setting yourself up to win long term. There's a low probability for sustainable growth. There's a low probability for improved cash flow. There's a low probability for improved profitability, right? Because, like, just by nature, when we take these actions rather, it alleviates a lot of the pressure and the strain from you just doing things on a day-to-day that don't necessarily benefit you. You'll actually have a piece around you so that you can make better choices about the freight that you take, the freight that you don't take, how you plan your loads, the partners you take on, because now you're building a reserve to a position where you feel safe and secure about the health of your business when it comes to cash. Okay. So that's one example of how we can actually achieve a financial goal and create the strategy around achieving those goals. Okay. So by aligning the financial goals with business objectives, companies can navigate challenges effectively while seizing new opportunities. This is what I'm talking about, okay? In terms of being able to have that alleviation of stress around decisions that you make, so that you know that when you go in, you're making decisions based on what you want, but rather than feeling as though you have to make these decisions in order to maintain and sustain, and then not really getting what you want in those scenarios. Okay, super important. Now, well, the next thing I want to get into, like the financial planning aspect of it, all right, I'm going to start talking about financial planning. So we got a basics here. We got a foundation of the importance of it. This is what we just did, okay? We just got the basics of why it's important to have this in place, why it's important to have like a CFO position, even if it's you really putting on that hat, wearing that CFO hat to make, to embody what it looks like to have the financial planning structures in place, so you can put it there and have your business consistently and reliably have those structures to move your financial position forward in your business, right? That's the important part of it. But now we want to talk about, well, what is it that you're going to do in terms of financial planning and trucking? All right, so let's take a look. Okay. Yeah. So sexy, right? Sexy. And budgeting. Everybody said people talk about budgets and everything, and I think a lot of people steer away from budgets. Like when it comes down to like honoring it and being in integrity with it, it can be frustrating, right? To understand how to do this because it's like we don't, well, how can I budget if I feel I don't have the resources there to adhere to this budget? What do I do here? And again, I want to emphasize like what it looks like to create versus react. I'm telling you, man, even me, man, I'll shy away from doing budgets every once in a while for my own stuff, and then like when that shows up, it's like, oh yeah, that thing is there. Let me just go do the action, take the action now, so that I can create beyond it and be in creation mode, right? I just said something there. Hold on, man. What did I just say? Creation versus reaction. Creation versus reaction. So budgets, they're not always sexy, man. Some of the things that we do to succeed in life, they're not necessarily sexy. We steer away from those things. We know that they're important, but they're not as urgent as all the other things that we have to deal with, right? They're not as urgent as the things that we have to deal with. So we tend to go after the things that appear more urgent than doing things like create budgets, right? And because we don't take that as a priority and take action on that, we never reap those benefits. We're always in reaction mode instead of the creation mode. What does creation look like? It looks like, well, there's something in life that I say that I want, and I'm aligning my thoughts, who I'm being, and my actions with those things. Okay. So everybody knows that, in order to be healthy, it's a matter of, you know, diet and exercise for the most part, and then alleviating like cortisol stress, reducing stress levels in the body, and you know, living like and producing like the hormones associated with joy and gratitude and fulfillment. Some of you might not have even known that, but the formula for being healthy in this world to have a high quality of life, the formula is pretty simple and is well known, is what I want to say. But then we have, let's statistics inside this country, how so many of us are obese in the United States and we're unhealthy, dealing with diabetes and high blood pressure and all these health ailments, cancer, all these other things like at alarming rates. But why is that the case? Because most people are being in reaction, not being in creation. And what creation looks like is like, I'm going to do the things that line up with what I say that I want. I'm going to line up my behavior patterns with what I say that I want. I'm going to create this. I'm going to think about these things daily, moment by moment, so that I actually achieve these things. And part of that inside of your business right now that we're talking about for trucking, and if you're going to be that CFO person inside of your business and wants to be coming up with the budget, right? Budgeting techniques, right? Understanding how you're going to do this in your business, how you're going to take on budgets inside of your trucking company, All right. So establishing detailed budgets allow trucking companies to allocate resources efficiently, control spending, and ensure cash flow management. Key techniques include zero-based budgeting and rolling forecasts, which adapt to changing market conditions and operational needs. Okay. So what does that mean, man? There's a lot of terminology in here that could be a little bit um, like it could be confusing to listen to how this is defined. And I want to make sure that it's not confusing for you. It's very simple, right? We call it like a $0 budget. Basically, everything is accounted for in that, is what that is. Like I go into the next month knowing that every dollar is going to be accounted for inside of what we bring in. Like we know, like we said, like 10% goes toward a reserve. So I know that $10 out of every 100 is going toward a reserve. That's accounted for. Okay, now what's the rest of the 90 going to? All right, we got maybe $20 going to um, $25 going to driver costs. Okay. So now we have $35 accounted for, which means we have 65 left. All right. Now office expenditures and fuel costs and everything else and insurance and all that gets accounted for inside of the budget. Line by line, we know exactly where things are going. We break it down. We take the time to understand where the money is coming in from and where it is going to each and every month. It might not necessarily be the same as last month. It'll pivot, it'll adjust, which is why this is an effective budgeting process, is because it's fluid inside of how you get to exist in your company. Now, if you have this going on, if you have a strategy in place where you're doing this, well, then you're going to have a high probability of going beyond where you've been inside of your business. You're going to have a high probability of breaking through new other levels where you have not broken through before, because you're constantly making those pivots and adjustments. And that's what's required in order to have breakthrough results. We can't do things the same way, or else we're going to continue to have the same results and the same outcomes. There's going to be slight pivots along the way that we can take on to have breakthrough results inside of what you're doing and what you're up to. All right, hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that's simple enough for you. Now, if it's simple for you, go ahead and put a 1 in the chat for me. If that seems simple and straightforward for you, go ahead and put a 1 in the chat. All right, let's go. So as we get into this, right, more budgeting, get into budget techniques, and then we get into forecasting and incoming and expenses. So get this. I want you to take this on in terms of, like, while you're hearing this conversation, put your checklist together, man. Budgeting and forecasting. All right. These are some things that we want to put in fundamentally to ensure that you can scale beyond 7 figures. All right. This is what we want to do. We want to put these in like checklist by checklist so that we ensure with a high probability that we can scale beyond 7 figures. Okay. All right. So accurate forecasting of income and expenses is essential for informed decisions. Utilizing historical data, market trends, and current economic conditions, firms can create realistic financial projections that aid in anticipating cash needs and adjusting strategies promptly. Now, you might not feel as though you have the skill sets. If you do, fantastic, right? So here are some of the things that would typically cause businesses to break down. Trucking companies break down in this area. Lack of knowledge, lack of time, right? Those are the two main things that get in the way. Lack of knowledge, lack of time, okay? They may occur as very real things, and they are really just an illusion. It's what I want to say, man. It's just an illusion. What do I mean? Okay, now, guess what? You say lack of time. You don't have enough time to sit down and put together the budget and the forecasting. Well, did God give you less hours than he gave me in a day? And did he really? Last I checked, man, I got 24 hours. So does my wife. She got 24 hours too. My dad, he has 24 hours. My brothers have 24 hours in a day. And billions of other people, 100% of the people on the planet, have 24 hours to work with in a day. So why would I have no time and the other person have time? Right? It's just merely an illusion. Now, when we get that we're just limiting ourselves in that respect, we can take on setting aside the time to put on that CFO hat and deliver budgeting, forecasting. Now, if you figure you don't have, you don't have the knowledge, I mean, You're on this planet just like I'm on this planet. This planet is full of knowledge. It's the information age, man, especially with all the technology at our fingertips and information at our fingertips. And people like me, your accounting superhero, you can do these things, man. Where you can have the know-how to do this and do it effectively so that you can continue to rise in your trucking company and take it to new heights. In this case, we're looking to have you scale to beyond seven figures and maintain peace of mind. Okay, that's what we're looking to do here. All right, now, if we get back into this, right, we're talking about forecasting. The next part of that, so we have budgeting, we have forecasting, and now we have investment strategies. Okay, now big deal, especially when it comes to taxes. We're going to wrap up with this, guys. We're going to continue this conversation next week. We're going to start here. Remind me of that, by the way. I'm going to bring this conversation back up next week so we can finish it off strongly. All right, so we have budgeting, we have forecasting, and now we have investment strategies. All right, get your 3 bullets there. Make sure you put that in your notebook if you're taking notes. All right, we have budgeting, we have forecasting, and then we have investment strategies. So investment strategies are super fantastic because now we can accelerate the growth through investing wisely. Now, what does that look like? And now, most of the time, you can scale your business by reinvesting in the business. You can get more equipment, so you can increase capacity, and you can grow your company and do more. Okay. One of the best ways to do that, okay, inside of what you have is to scale and invest that way. And if we compound that with other things like, well, we have companies that work in, Midland, Texas. We work with some trucking companies that work in Midland, Texas. And if you're not familiar with Midland, Texas, that's like Oil Central over there, right? And Energy Central over there. Did you realize that you have credits and deductions available just for investing in that market? The oil and energy markets. You get tax credits for that. You get extra tax deductions for that as well if you invest in energy. Like, for example, like if you are capitalizing, if you're taking in money and you're investing in equipment, if you're doing it inside of the oil industry where it takes drilling or excavation equipment or other equipment like that, well, you can like take the full amount of that deduction in the first year. You don't have to depreciate that over the life of the equipment over years, like 5, 7 years. Okay, typically when it comes to equipment investing, or even startup costs, like where you have to take that over 15 years, you have to actually divide the expense over 15 years. If you're investing in certain things, well, you get the benefit of accelerated expenses on that, which means you can deduct that right now. Okay, and take the tax deduction right now. So if you invested at $100,000 in the oil industry, and that's $30,000 in tax reduction. Get that, okay? All right, so that's 30,000 in terms of if you're at 30% tax bracket anyway, so roughly 30%. You get $30,000 tax break, tax savings. Get that, okay? Where you wouldn't have that normally if you weren't investing there. Plus, you get credits in addition to that, which is a dollar for dollar tax reduction. Right? If you're doing research and development into, let's say, better ways of doing what you do, then all that money is not only deductible, but you also get a 10% credit on that money that you invested in that area. Now we're talking about how to compound the investment for your company when it comes to this. And there's so many other things, guys, that we can get into. But what I want to leave you with in this conversation is the opportunity that it is to take off the employee for your own company hat and put on the CFO hat, which is the person who works on their business, and really create the structures and the systems to enable your business to scale beyond what you thought possible. Okay. Now, if you want to be left with anything in this conversation and you want to be left with that, how you can actually take on looking at your business from the ownership perspective, really the CFO perspective, and creating those next levels of your trucking company. I want to leave you with that in that conversation, guys. It's been great being with you this week. Take this on, guys. Understand, take your notes from this call. We're going to continue this conversation next week. I'm hoping that you got value out of this for yourselves today. It's always a pleasure being with you. I want you to have a great rest of your Monday night, great rest of your week, and I'll see you next Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Take care, guys, and talk soon.